I think most people are aware that for the last 40 years, the middle class of our country has been in decline. That in Vermont and all over this country, we have people working 2 or 3 jobs. We have people working 50, 60, 70 hours a week just to put food on the table, just to make sure that their families can live with a modicum of dignity. And the reason for all of that is that wages in the United States of America are just too low.
So the idea that if fast food workers get a living wage, that somehow the fast food companies will fire them and hire robots is something stupid that a lot of people say because for some reason they're angry at people who make less money than them. That whole, do you ever hear people say that? Right. So just keep in mind, whenever you find yourself angry at someone lower on the economic ladder than you, pretty good chance you're being manipulated by someone higher on the economic ladder than you. And so we've showed you in Denmark, we did a video on this channel about how they make $20 an hour, the workers in Denmark. And it's mostly because of strong unions.
Yeah.
And they understand that, you know, it's okay that if you work at a restaurant, you should still be able to have a life. Because you work at a restaurant doesn't mean you're a piece of and you don't get to have things. We need restaurants. Everyone likes them. Why don't we pay the people who work in them a living wage? CNN actually sent a reporter to Denmark to check it out. And this is what he found out.
McDonald's is used in the debate over minimum wage. In Denmark, there is no minimum wage. But because of union negotiations, people who work at McDonald's here make almost $20 an hour. And even though things are very costly in Denmark, this Big Mac costs less than in the United States.
So isn't that interesting? They make $20 an hour at McDonald's. You mean they didn't hire machines to do it when it hit $15 an hour? I wonder why they didn't do that.
It sounds like the workers are empowered to advocate for their needs. He said they have unions, and that's why they make $20 an hour at McDonald's.
So it's not. So by the way, their $20 an hour wage at McDonald's, that is not mandated by the government through a minimum wage. That is negotiated by strong unions, just as Hank said. Strong unions.
When the economy serves everybody, when everybody gets to participate in the profits, it means that the people who sweep the floors should be paid an amount of money that they can use to live off of. It's not a complicated or a radical idea at all.
Question is this: you make a really good point about low wages, and in the UK here we've got something called the minimum wage. My question to you is this: in the world of globalization that we live in now, how do you reconcile paying people the kind of wages you're talking about when the same work can be done in another part of the world and there's freedom of trade and movement of people and so on, without causing disruptions? Don't you think it's a bit of a conflict there?
Yeah, so that's a great question, the question of globalization. So first, you have to remember that the same people who are writing the trade treaties are the people who wrote your tax code, right? This is the trickle-down crowd, and they have a very particular view about how the economy should work, and they're super comfortable with arrangements where a few people benefit from these things and a lot of people don't. So the things that citizens have accepted as sort of given about the way in which we trade with other countries indeed are not given, and you can have other constructs that may create a different result.
You mean protectionism?
Well, if not protectionism, at least allowances for the dynamics of trade. I'm a big believer in trade, but to be very, very clear, we have found ways to create a situation where some people benefit from trade and other people don't, right? But those arrangements are not set in stone. We could distribute the benefits and the costs of trade in a very, very different way. But unless I'm missing something about the great country of Great Britain, mostly what you're making here today is tea, if I may say so.
I think you're slightly simplifying the British economy.
Unless I'm wrong, 77% of your economy is a service economy today, and those jobs cannot be outsourced. All the jobs that could be outsourced, they're gone, right? The person that's working in a barista or in a restaurant or wherever it is, that is the economy. That is the economy. And if those folks don't earn enough money to raise a family and build a life, then you don't have an economy. We have to find a way as a modern, yeah. All right.
Well, it means that if you're making a profit, maybe you share some of that profit with the people who actually generate that profit for you, right? So that's what that, and it turns out everybody can make money.
Yeah.
Somebody can make a living wage selling hamburgers, working at a restaurant, and the person who owns the restaurant also makes money. Right now in America, we have the people who own the restaurants making lots of money, and the people who work there are poverty wage.
Teddy Roosevelt, 2019, has an economics degree from the University of Minnesota system. I also have a business degree, and I managed grocery stores for about 7 years. I know the numbers in the video clip you're about to watch are accurate because the numbers make sense to me. I did an independent analysis of the numbers after watching the video, and the numbers are correct. The video is a little dated. It's from Slate.com. It's from 2014. It looks at an interesting question. If you walk into Walmart in a random day in 2014, and Walmart is paying its cashiers and stock people $8.81 an hour, which would be roughly $18,000 per year on a 40-hour work week. What if Walmart raised all of its workers' pay to a level where the workers would not qualify for food stamps? To do that, the video is going to explain, they would have to pay their workers $13.63 an hour if they were a single mother with a child, roughly $28,000 a year. At the end of the video is going to tell you how much your 68-cent box of macaroni and cheese, or I'm going to call it $100 worth of stuff, would cost more. And when you see the number, you're not going to want to believe it because the number is way lower than most people guess. At the very end of the video, they give you the number which indicates how much a 68-cent box of macaroni and cheese would have to go up in price so Walmart could pay all of their workers a living wage. And I've shown this video clip to fellow social studies teachers who've taught economics, and they won't believe it. And I tell them, trust me, I teach econ, and I used to run a grocery store. I know how the numbers work. A grocery store is very similar to a Walmart. But the number is so much lower than they're expecting, they refuse to believe it. Even my own brother didn't believe this video clip when I sent him the link in an email back in 2014 or 15. So when you hear the final total of how much the 68-cent box of macaroni and cheese will cost if every worker at Walmart made a living wage of $13.63 an hour, I know the number's accurate. I would testify under oath in court that the following video clip that you're just about to watch is 100% correct. So buckle up and enjoy.
This is a box of mac and cheese. This is Walmart. And these are your tax dollars. We're going to show you how much that mac and cheese might cost if Walmart paid its workers enough that no one was eligible for food stamps. The average person living near the poverty line can receive around $130 a month in food stamps. So say you're a single mom with one child and you work for Walmart. You'd be eligible for food stamps if you make less than $20,449 a year. Walmart says the average wage for hourly store associates is $11.83 an hour, but that includes some supervisor positions. Industry analyst research puts the average cashier at about $8.81 an hour. Based on data from one state, Ohio, as many as 15% of Walmart employees use food stamps. That's about 40 employees per store who earn so little they qualify for food stamps. Last year, the U.S. distributed $76 billion in food stamps. Walmart says it takes in 18% of all those food stamp dollars. That's about $13 billion a year. If Ohio is representative, Walmart employees receive somewhere around $300 million a year in food stamp benefits, ultimately spending those dollars at food stores, like Walmart. So let's say that single mom who cashiers at Walmart also shops there. She earns food stamps from the government, then turns around and spends them at Walmart. So what would it take to push someone like the single mom up to a point where she no longer qualified for food stamps? Let's say she works a typical amount of hours for a retail job. Walmart would have to raise her wage to just above $13.63 an hour. Doing this for all of its employees would cost the company $4.8 billion each year. If Walmart wanted to pass those costs on to the consumer, they'd have to raise their prices by about 1.4%. For example, that means that box of great value mac and cheese would jump from 68 cents to 69 cents. That's 1 penny per box of mac and cheese to save U.S. taxpayers $300 million each year.
We need restaurants. Everyone likes them. Why don't we pay the people who work in them a living wage?
And less desperation or less poverty means less desperation. Less desperation means less crime, less
sure
stress,
does.
less health problems. Everybody benefits. I want my neighbors to be strong and healthy.
Right.
Not just because I care about them, but because that's a selfish, you can take that from a selfish angle. We're all better off if there's fewer desperation and fewer poor people, essentially. Not to say that poor people are inherently bad. It's that low economic stress drives a lot of negative behaviors in a lot of ways.
Yes, Hank, you're right.
It's just insane. There are selfish reasons to be good to people. That's all I'm trying to say.
You can be good you can do things for other people and still be self-interested.
Yeah.
So this is for, in Australia, they make $16 an hour at McDonald's. .com. And it says advocates of the raise point to Australia, a magical land where McDonald's staff earn more than $16 an hour and burgers are still really cheap, only 60 to 70 cents more expensive than in America.
This video mentions how workers in Australia and Denmark in fast food restaurants make way more than they do in the United States. Now, you might assume that standard of living in those countries is lower than ours because, you can't pay fast food workers $16 or $18 an hour. The opposite is true. In 2014, GDP per capita, meaning economic output of the entire country per person in the country, was $61,000 in Australia, $60,564 in Denmark, and only $54,000 here in the United States. How is it possible that GDP per capita is lower in the United States than Australia? Much of Australia is a desert. It's called the Outback. The country is mostly a waste of space. Denmark has serious issues regarding land and arable land and farmland, etc. Well, the answer is simple. In Denmark and Australia, they believe in paying their workers a living wage. Those workers go out and spend money in the economy, and workers' wages drive the economy of Australia and Denmark. So don't think Australia and Denmark are poor countries. Their GDP per capita is more than the United States.
By the way, they passed a $15 minimum wage in Seattle. Did you notice how they closed down all those Burger Kings and McDonald's and Taco Bells and they replaced all the workers with robots? Oh, they didn't do that? Somehow they're still making money. They didn't close down? Why wouldn't they close down? How could they possibly make money if they have to pay people? So all this time, those companies, those fast food places in Seattle and San Francisco, they all could have been paying their workers $15 already and still making money because that's what they're doing now and still making money because they didn't close. I've been trying to tell the Democrats that they have to have proposals to win. You have to have policies. You have to have ideas that will help people's life get better, change their lives for the better, working people. And minimum wage is a big winner. Everybody's for the minimum wage, and when you put it on the ballot, it really brings out the blue-collar voters who want to vote Democrat. So that means if the Democrats propose a minimum wage, that is. So, but they always say the right-wing talking point.
While some say a higher minimum wage drives employers to hire fewer people, others argue it will help struggling workers financially without affecting employment. Only 2 states and a handful of cities have passed laws to increase minimum wages to $15. A $15 minimum wage won't wipe out brands, but it will impact independently owned franchises and young workers looking for employment. For example, nearly 90% of McDonald's locations are independently owned. They keep roughly 6 cents per sales dollar after paying for food, staff costs, rent, and other expenses. A typical McDonald's franchisee sells $2.6 million of product a year. That leaves roughly $156,000 in profit. With 15 part-time employees at $15 an hour, 3/4 of the profits are spent on wages. Higher product costs could make up for some lost revenue, but customers are notoriously sensitive to price increases, and the hikes would likely not bring in enough. Moreover, if those employers are McDonald's or Walmart, that could again burden disadvantaged families since they are the ones who eat and shop there. Here are some changes we might see following a $15 minimum wage. Number 1, self-service kiosks. Kiosks are already popular in higher-cost European and Asian countries. In 2011, McDonald's ordered 7,000 kiosks to replace full-service employees.
Is that minimum wage going to cost jobs? If you keep raising it, we're just going to replace them all with robots. So, guess what? This is in Marketplace. Wetzel's Pretzels. Yeah, Wetzel's. I love Wetzel's Pretzels. Wetzel's Pretzels CEO says minimum wage increase boosts his business. Huh? What? Get out.
I teach college-level economics, so I'm aware of a concept called the income elasticity of demand. For some items, if your income goes up, your desire to buy that item goes up faster than your income rose. Now, here's an example that does not prove that rule. If you get a 10% increase in your income, you buy 1.5% more milk. This item is called income inelastic. Same thing with ice cream. 10% increase in your income, there's a 9% increase in your willingness to buy ice cream. But some items, particularly restaurant meals, violate this idea. Restaurant meals, 10% increase in your income, there's a 14% increase in your demand for restaurant meals. And for an item like Wetzel Pretzel, kind of a restaurant item served in a shopping mall, who is in shopping malls buying Wetzel Pretzels? It's not the rich. It's not the elite. It is ordinary people who work ordinary jobs who might get a raise if minimum wage rises. And if a 10% increase in income leads to a 14% increase in demand for restaurant meals, when wages rise, profits will go up at the restaurant. Then Jimmy Dore explains that in the next video clip.
How could that boost their business? Because the owners will have less money to spend. Oh, but all the workers will have more money to spend? And the owner's going to spend exactly how much they always spend? So here it is. The state increased the minimum wage in mid-2014 and raised it again January 1st on its path to reach a $15 minimum wage by 2022. Phelps worried increasing wages for his employees would cut into profits, and that if he raised prices to compensate, fewer people would come to eat his pretzels and sales would drop. So he's in a double bind. But something else happened entirely. Sales at his California stores immediately shot up. What? Wait a minute. How could that possibly be? I was shocked, Phelps said. I was stunned by the business.
And then Phelps' heart grew 2 sizes that day.
The same exact pattern happened in 2016, Phelps said. A wage increase by the state led to a bump in business. Huh? Now Phelps is convinced that minimum wage increases aren't bad for the fast food business. They're great.